And this is the everybody's too high. This is the PCA&D Society Illustrators. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
And we want to thank you for talking to us today, and
fine, yeah.
And say good evening. We know that it's 6 o'clock over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just thought I'd open up by just saying, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got your start, how you got to kind of where you are today?
Okay. Well, I started out by doing a foundation course when I was about 18, and then doing a degree course between 19 and 22, and I did illustration at Brighton University. And then after that, I actually, while I was at university, I started working with some bands like Gallo and just sort of a lot of alternative bands. And from doing that, I started to get a lot of freelance work. And that freelance work kind of led into me actually having a career when I left university. And that's the basic sort of way I got started doing what I'm doing at the moment. And it's been 4 years I left university. So yeah, that's the general idea. So I'm not able to hear you at the moment, actually, I don't think.
We're having a little bit of difficulty. We can hear you, but you're just coming through a little fuzzy.
Okay, cool.
I think everybody got a good gist of how you got your start. Anybody have any questions for Dan?
Yeah, I was just wondering what your typical workday is like.
If you didn't hear, you said what's your typical workday like?
Generally, I'll get into the studio because I rent a studio that I share with other people, and I'll get into the studio around between 10 and 11 normally. Quite a late start, but then I'll be there till maybe about 7 or 8. And during the day, generally I'll start out with doing a lot of emails, just keeping on top of all that stuff. Because I think a lot of people let emails slide quite easily, so I try and keep on top of that in the first hour or so of every day. And then I'll start working on whatever I'm working on, really. And generally that's it for most of the day. Unless there's, business calls to be taken or something like that. It's generally just me in the studio, either sketching on something or working something up on the computer. That's the general day-to-day there.
How many jobs do you normally, whether it's sketch phase, finish phase, how many things do you usually take on at once? Like, what's your kind of workflow like?
It's up and down. Sometimes I can have a lot of stuff on, and then sometimes I can have nothing on at all. So it really depends. I'll be normally working on one thing in particular at a time, but then I'll also have other stuff on the back burner. So I'll actually, a good way of putting it is I'll sort of let a few jobs build up maybe over a couple of weeks, and then I will do all of the rough sketches for those at the same time, because some clients are a lot slower to get back to you than others. So it's no good working for just one person at a time, because they might take 2 weeks to get back to you, 2 weeks where you're not doing anything in particular. So generally a good idea to be working on a few things at the same time, but when I'm focused on something, it's just that one thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, your style seems to work really well with screen printing. Did you develop your style with that in mind, or did you always draw like that?
I didn't always draw like that, no. It was it came from learning screen printing, actually. So when I was at university in my second year, I learned the process of screen printing, and that kind of helped steer the way I was creating my work. because obviously I knew you had to separate the colours really easily. So that and also I've always really liked comic books and stuff like that. So the use of heavy black line to indicate a lot of the detail is kind of where that came from. And that and learning screen printing meant I just sort of started creating images that way, I guess. And also I was really bad with colour. I couldn't use colour at all. I did everything in black and white. So the way I got into using colour was screen printing by just adding 1 or 2 colours. And then it got to the point where I do a lot of stuff digitally now, but I still create it in the same way that I used to create screen print work. Obviously with a lot more stuff going on. Yeah, so that's the basic idea.
This is kind of a personal curiosity question. I actually collect a lot of your silk screen prints and stuff like that.
Great.
I just ordered the new horror series one from Halloween. Just curious, what kind of stuff do you have upcoming for the horror series?
Oh, okay. So you mean the ones that have come from Dark City Gallery, those ones, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't actually know. We've got a big list of about 20 different films that we're thinking of working with. But I don't know what's next, to be honest. That's yet to be decided. Because we've actually only just, like, those ones only just got printed about a week ago. So we're only just seeing... I haven't even seen them yet. So they've been sent up, but I haven't seen the prints yet. So we'll be working on something around Christmas, I think.
Okay.
But I don't know what yet.
Cool.
Dan, when you're working with a client, like say a band or a gallery or something like that, do you find that you've had a lot of success having a lot of creative control, or have you dealt with a lot of clients where they want something very specific from you?
I've had, do you know what, I've had some clients who want a lot of control, and they're quite tough to work with, personally. I think that's probably because I've got quite a, well, my style is pretty much my style, you know. It's not, if you ask me to do a piece of work, I guess you know what you're getting to some extent, which is a good thing, but at the same time, it means if a client comes to me that might be someone like, let's say Nike or Adidas or something, they will want a lot more control, and it will be a lot harder for me to work with them, because trying to work on a basis of I'll do a sketch for someone, they approve that, I then go on to the final drawing. It's not very easy for me to make changes or edits to it, but bigger clients will want to make those edits, and they will want to change lots of little things. They go back and forth like 7, 8 times sometimes. So I think the best work I produce is normally when I'm left to it myself, to an extent. But at the same time, I want the client to be happy, obviously. But it generally works out better if it's more creatively controlled by me, I think. That's I produce my best work, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. You ready? Come on, guys, we got him. he's giving a sign here.
Inspirations. What are your...
Yeah, inspiration, sure. Just as a general topic, you know.
Okay. Well, I'm not inspired by a lot of art. Not to say there's not great stuff out there, but it's more, I don't go looking for inspiration in that place. So I'm inspired a lot by movies and comic books. Growing up, those were kind of my main inspirations. So I always knew I wanted to do something that was in the realm of being creative. I Actually, at one point, I thought I was going to go and try and become a writer, which is a bit strange now thinking about it. But that was something I wanted to do when I was younger, because I wanted to be able to create stuff. So anything that is anything that is creative, I take inspiration from, I guess. Mainly from movies, things with narrative. A lot of movies from the 80s, horror movies, sci-fi movies, The Thing, Alien, all that sort of stuff. The visuals in those sort of films, they're more inspirational to me than flat art or something. But at the same time, I have a lot of respect for a lot of artists, and someone like Alphonse Mucha is a great inspiration for me. And then also, modern times, someone I'm really into is James Jean, who's done some beautiful work, and I can only wish to be as good as someone like that. So, in that respect, I think I look up to artists, but I don't necessarily take inspiration from their style or anything.
Speaking of style, you do the screen printing as your primary professional work. Do you ever do things that are maybe in a different media, maybe oils, acrylics, painting, drawing, sculpture, anything just for yourself? Or would you want to do that professionally at some point?
I want to get into painting. When I've got some time, I plan to do like a series of paintings, but with the intention of showing them at a gallery or something like that. I think I'm kind of stuck in a rut of the way I create my work at the moment, which is very easy to do because, well, and also you've got to do it to make a living, I guess. But I plan on doing some paintings. I've been getting back into drawing by hand with pen and pencil, whereas for the last couple of years I haven't done as much of that as I used to, mainly because of speed. I do everything on the tablet, on the computer, because I sort of taught myself to translate the way I work onto the computer in that way, and half the time it would take me to do some work. So I'm sort of going back to keeping it a bit more real, actually creating the work, not being able to erase every single mistake. And at the same time, it's helping me to actually focus on a piece of work as opposed to on a small square on the screen. Because it's very easy when I'm working on the computer to zoom right into something, work on it for an hour, and lose focus on the whole piece, the whole composition. So, I'm trying to get myself off working completely in a digital way. So I think the next year or so, hopefully, we'll be doing some more stuff like that.
Anything else? Is there anybody in particular you would ever want to do work for, like that you haven't been able to yet?
Do you know what? I can't really think of anyone. It's not that there's not people I'd like to work for. I think it's more, I've worked with a lot of bands, and for me, growing up, music was really important. So working bands and working with these really famous bands or whatever was, I guess, my goal for a couple of years.